This story, boys and girls, is a true story about a moron called Paul. Once upon a time, one of Paul's cameras got hacked from across the internet. And it was, in fact, his own stupid fault, because he had happily opened the ports to the internet as part of some testing. And like the genius that he is, he forgot to close the ports again. So one day, quite inevitably, Paul sat at his desk happily working away when all of a sudden, the camera springs to life. And after scanning about a bit, it turns and looks him dead in the face. After Paul had finished burying the camera in the garden, he resolved that PTZ cameras were a bad idea for the inside of his house, and that he would use this wonderfully technical method of protecting his privacy instead. That was, of course, until one day he saw this advert from SwitchBot and thought, perhaps I'll do that instead. Oh, here we go. Paul Hibbert recommends a Cara one week for doing this exact same bloody thing, and then it's SwitchBot the next week because, ooh, whoever paid him the most money should get featured this week, shouldn't they? This thing is a third of the price of the Aqara camera, and it does some unbelievable stuff that the Aqara camera doesn't. That isn't to say there aren't advantages and disadvantages to both systems, and we're going to discuss all of those things in today's video. But this is a PTZ camera for 30 quid. Thanks to SwitchBot for sponsoring today's video and for sending me their new spinny Exorcist head camera and this unbelievably clever door sensor. We'll talk more today about how this unbelievably clever door sensor does some things you just won't expect. That work? Bait you in? Have you been baited by the master? I can't do this joke every week. Sorry. You've been masturbated! SwitchBot makes some of my favourite smart home products. Curtain choo-choo trains, bizarre little robots that press buttons, and the best door sensor on the market. This door sensor is a motion sensor, and a contact sensor, and an ambient light sensor, and a button all in one. And yet for some bizarre reason only costs £25. And the genius of this door sensor is that it knows when you have left the house, because it knows that there is no motion once the door sensor has been opened and closed. And it knows when you've come back through the door because it recognizes when the door is opened and closed and then there is motion, there must have been a person coming through the door. That's just mind-blowingly clever. And so I figured I would implement the solution we saw in the advert to finally solve my camera problem. And so I zoomed in far too close to my face and pulled some amusing expressions for the camera whilst inserting the batteries. Because that's all Paul Hibbert does, pulls stupid faces and slaps people. Stop it! That's not all I do. Sometimes I add a little vignette around the corners of the screen and some screen noise to disguise the fact that I haven't lit the scene correctly. And so I attached the door sensor to my door frame, tested it was working, and then put the door sensor in pairing mode and paired the door sensor to the app. Finally, I created a routine in the app that says, when the door sensor detects that I have left the room, turn off the privacy shutter on the camera. And then another routine that says, when the door sensor detects me entering the room, turn the privacy shutter back on so that I can't be watched. I was so smug. Except of course there's one fairly gaping flaw with this plan. And this is where I discovered something incredibly unusual. I can control this camera's alert system and its privacy shutter using Alexa routines. And this changes everything. Alexa, enable privacy shutter.
Okay.
I can't believe that works.
Start monitoring for movement.
Okay.
And with a little bit of effort, a lot of effort, I can get Home Assistant to send a request to Alexa's routine to start that routine happening when I come home through geofencing. It's a little bit of a dirty workaround, but it works. I've done it.
I don't believe that works.
That's so good! Home Assistant! Both the door sensor and the camera can also be used to trigger Alexa routines. This means that I can use the motion sensor of the camera to turn this entire room on, for example. Or I can use the door sensor being opened to turn this entire room on instead. But probably most impressively, I can get the camera to automatically load its feed onto the Echo Show if the camera sees motion.
Paul Jr. has had another nightmare that Philips Hue have become competitive.
Wow. Oh, go to sleep, baby Paul. Philips will never release a competitively priced product. That's the Zigbee. The Zigbee. The Zigbee. It also supports Amazon's official motion announcements feature, which means that with just one click, I can set this up.
Motion detected at the SwitchBot Exorcist head.
That was well timed, wasn't it? Look at that. Flipping heck.
The camera can record continuously 24/7 or only when motion is detected. It has 1080p day and night vision. Night vision mode can be turned off to allow you to point the camera out of a window. And probably, most unexpectedly at this price range, it has pan and tilt functionality too with AI detection. This is AI detection. It'll follow humans around at £30. It can be ceiling mounted. It is fantastically responsive with very little delay and has two-way talk functionality that is very clear despite the fact that the speaker is on the back. Fly me to the moon and let me sing. I get paid to do this. This is my job now. That joke's about 6 months old. I don't care. In the box is a rather cute looking camera, and the first thing you'll notice other than its spinny Exorcist head is a micro USB port, which is a bit old school, but it's one of the ways they've kept the price so preposterously low. Then there's some kind of book, which my wife has correctly handled, and the setup took literally no time at all. Figuratively! Literally no time at all. Because all you do is scan a QR code, give it your Wi-Fi details, and then name it. As soon as it's named, that's it. You can access the feed. The SD card slot will take up to 128 gig micro SD cards, and it's kind of located in the chin. Doesn't give me much wiggle room for my usual sexual innuendo, does it?
Oh yeah! Put it in my chin! Just like that! Right in the chin! Oh yeah!
Hello? Is that the internet? Yes, I'd like to cancel Paul Hibbert, please. It's disgusting, smutty rubbish. Image quality-wise, compression tends to happen a bit during movement, but for £30 and at 1080p, the camera's picture quality is actually pretty good. If you compare it side by side to the Aqara G3 at 3 times the price, you can see the image quality actually stands up pretty well, both during the day and during the night. Night vision can also be turned off too, which means that you could point the camera out of a window, and even with the night vision disabled, you can still get a usable picture. On top of the automations we've already discussed, there are a couple of other very unexpected features for a £30 camera. The first one is its ability to store particular locations across its route. This means that you could have a SwitchBot motion sensor in the dining room, and if this camera was set in the kitchen and motion was detected in the dining room, the camera could turn to look at that position. Really clever. Get to the part where you explain why the door sensor has a button on it, you buffoon! You don't need that button. That button is for people who occasionally have sex with a lady. I've told you before! I have sex with a lady! It's my wife! You've seen my wife! Isn't that right, wife? Yes! Yes, it is. Pretty sure that's just you in women's clothing. But anyway, That button is for people who live in a multi-household situation. There are two different modes within the SwitchBot app for this thing. You have the mode that I've already demonstrated, where it just automatically knows a person has left, but that would be no good for me because I have a wife. If I leave the house and it thinks there's no one in, I'll just keep getting notifications about the missus. So it has a second mode, which is where you press a button instead to tell it you are leaving. You are the last person to leave the house and pressing the button. Very clever. The full list of triggers for the door sensor to start a routine are exit, entry, open, close, the door being left open for a set period of time, motion being detected, which is quite amazing, motion not being detected, and no motion for a set period, and changes in the room's brightness level. This thing can trigger routines off of the back of all of those things. The full list of routines that the camera can carry out off the back of one of these triggers: send notifications should motion be detected, turn privacy mode on and off, turn recording on and off, and move to a preset point in the room. The camera itself can also be used as a trigger. If the camera detects motion, it can trigger a series of events. The only thing it can't do, which I think is a missed opportunity, is listen out for noise. And if it hears an abnormal noise, do a thing. This would have been perfect because we could have used it as a baby monitor. None of these things are a deal breaker for me personally, but you will need a hub if you want to use the door sensor. The hub controls the door sensor's communications with the cloud for she that should not be named, and even internally to talk to the camera. So hub is required if you want to use the door sensor. There is currently no RTSP support for this camera, and it doesn't yet work with Home Assistant. There is no official Home Assistant integration for any SwitchBot products at the moment. It is broken. One of the things that I liked about the Aqara G3 was that I could play sounds out of the camera as part of routines. It meant, for example, that if the shutter was opening without me realizing, it would play a noise and warn me. I can't do that with this, and I can't do that with any kind of workaround either, because you can't use the shutter opening as a trigger for an Alexa routine. And finally, cruise mode is batshit insane. It doesn't do what it's meant to do. It kind of just looks around a little bit at some random angles, which for me are all in the wrong place, and then stops altogether, despite the fact it is supposed to keep working. I think this is a bug, and I have raised all of the issues I've just discussed with SwitchBot to see if they have an answer. If they answer me, I shall let you know in the description what it is that they have said. Aside from those gripes, this is a £30 camera that has more Alexa integration than I have ever seen on any other camera. I have never seen another camera at any price tag that can open its privacy shutter as part of a routine, and you can use the routines to start it looking for motion too. This thing is actually unbelievable. Everything featured in today's video and SwitchBot's other products are linked in the description, and they are preposterously cheap. If you want to go pick one up, check them there. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, because that will tell YouTube's algorithms it was a good video and more people should see it. If you want to see some more of this guy, hit that subscribe button and ding that bell. And if you ding the bell, it lets YouTube know that you want to be notified when I upload videos. These incredible people here are my patrons from Patreon, and without them, this channel would not be here. I only have this channel because these guys helped me quit the day job, and without them, it would not be here. I would be in a day job in a call center. If you want to do that, you can do that at either Patreon or buy me a one-off beer at PayPal, and either way, I would genuinely love you forever. These are my Facebooks and my Twitters and my Instagrams and my TikToks too. Come and hang out there and we can be best friends. See you next time. It can be sealing. Sure, I just smelled something horrible. I just burped. It is my own burp. Disgusting, smatty rubbish. Disgusting. Beard. Beard mouth. Da 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 da.